As we said today, our topic is about the HR annual audit. First of all, I would like to present again a brief introduction of the DP Group. Okay, but I believe since most of you are already our clients for a long time, so we would like just to go quickly to introduce ourselves. Okay, it is our focus. DP Group, now we have offices in major developing economies as China, India, Vietnam, and Russia. We are going to open a new office in Russia, in Moscow. And mainly we assist the multinational industrial groups and also as well as small and medium enterprises. This is the structure currently of our group. Okay, DP Consulting Group is derived from Dundee Partners of Legal Counsel. Where we, I personally, with Pablo, we started our adventure. After we have founded also PRC Advisory for tax and accounting, and the Eastern for event and communication, which has successfully organized 3 years in a row the Italian Design Icons Festival. And this year we have set up also Chance and Better, an education training company, which we aim to assist our clients in the sector of education, like language training, like the exchange of the program between Europe and China, and so on. This is a general introduction of a group. Like I already explained most of the major parts. After we will send you this presentation, and you can read more details. Our mission is to make the world a better place where to do business. This is our mission. Okay, main advantages. We have great international experience. We have a strong and important network. We have a team composed of professionals coming from different backgrounds, different culture, and mastering the multilingual skills. And we always pursue to deliver the excellent service in a fast way to our clients. These are mainly the services which we provide daily to our clients. Okay, so now let's start about today's topic. Today's topic about HR annual audit is composed about in two aspects. So I will first start to deliver the first aspect about from legal point of view, and after my colleague, Tommaso Colli, General Manager of PRC Advisory, will deliver the second part about the tax aspect. So, what is the HR annual audit? I believe most of you now is not doing exactly an audit on the HR aspect. Actually, if you, some of our clients, if you are working with us for some period, you have already received a service from us, which name is HR Upgrade. So usually when we enter into a new company, we will take the first days, first months to make an investigation on HR aspects in the company, from the documentation point of view, from the regulation point of view, if the employees are fully in compliance, the contracts are fully in compliance with labor law in China, if the payment of social insurance is fully in compliance with Chinese regulations. All these aspects we will examine together with your HR team. I believe also today mainly the HR managers are present in today's seminar. Okay. But this is not enough. As we all know, the HR regulations and the laws, they are changing year by year. So every year we need to do our audit to check if the situation in the company is in compliance with the law or not. Okay. So actually, if in a simple words, it's like a physical health check that you need to do every year, not like once 5 years. Because sometimes if you find out a disease too late, we cannot have even the time and the possibility to cure it. So that is why we also suggest, I believe all of you, for your employees, you have this kind of policy to do the annual physical health check. So it's the same also for the health of the HR situation in your company. Okay, when to conduct HR audit, as I said before, we strongly suggest you do it annually. Okay, this is to make it as precise as possible and to root out existing problems, existing issues as soon as possible before it damages your company. It is also doing in this way, it would help to increase the efficiency of your labor force and to reduce the relevant costs in case of any problem occur. In this page, I'm showing you about the latest legal update in this year, which we have in China, mainly regarding HR aspect. Okay, as you may see in this page, we have 3 regulations. The first one is General Data Protection Regulation, the famous GDPR, which is not a Chinese regulation, but it's a European one. But we have also, in the same time, from China end, we have the cybersecurity law, which is entered in force last year, and also the information security technology, personal information security specification, which as a supplementary regulation to cybersecurity law has been put in effective this year. Okay, all these 3 regulations give us one point to, especially for our HR point of view, to take attention, pay attention, is like when we collect information from our employees, we cannot just, because daily if you have hundreds of employees or more than 200, 300 employees, so when you do recruitment and you do employment, you hire them, you need to collect many forms, registration forms with the information, personal data of the employees. So for this reason, mainly in the past, I don't believe in China we have this sense of privacy to ask them to sign, let's say, consent to use their personal data. But now, in China, the law is to, okay, they cannot see.
It looks like Manu cannot, so I suggested him to restart. I just wanted to check if everybody was seeing us properly.
Okay, so everyone can see the
sound.
Can see the PPT?
Yes, we can saw that.
Okay, but some of them can, some of them not. Maybe it's a technical issue later. Okay, I will continue.
If you have any issues, try and restart maybe the program. Yes, Skype.
Okay. So what I suggest, after I will repeat also here, is to put anyway a disclaimer when you ask your employee to fill in the registration form of personal data. Like they will give their agreement, consent to use their personal data. Okay, so this is very important now. And the other 3 laws I put here, one is the individual income tax law, which is famous. I believe all of you already knows about it. And after Thomas also will explain better on this point. And the second one is about the labor dispute arbitration time, which caused by occupational disease, will be shortened from 45 days to 30 days. This means like if an employee brings the company to labor arbitration for sake of occupational disease, usually we will have 45 days as a time limit for the arbitration committee to finish the trial. But if it is about occupational disease, it will be shortened to 30 days. But it's not a main change on the law. The last one is about the National Tax and Local Tax Collection and Management System Reform Plan. This is mainly about the collection of social insurance, because we know in the past the social insurance fund has been collected mainly by social insurance fund center, which belongs to the Human Resource and the Social Insurance Bureau. But now from next January, this function will be moved from this bureau to tax bureau. This means like also the government is going to be more strict on the collection of social insurance. Okay, what to expect from HR audit? Of course, as I said, HR audit annually, if we make it, is to keep the status of your HR compliance health. This is the main reason why we need to do it. Of course, I put a list here for the possible benefits which we could have from this HR audit. For example, less money wasted on efficient processes, increased safeguards against governmental audits, because we do already before the government comes to check. So, of course, we can be ready already when the government comes to check. I won't repeat all of them, but after you can read with detailed information after. Okay, how to conduct HR audit from legal compliance point of view. Okay, so we have five aspects I want to go through during this time shortly. It's from recruitment, documentation, workplace safety and risk management, employee records, and termination policies. These are mainly from legal compliance point of view. Recruitment, as we all know, like if you are a manufacturing company, I mean the recruitment will go along all the year. Okay, you are not in any case stopped in recruitment, because maybe you will have people in and people out. So the first point I want to remind during HR audit is about the internal job description. Okay. Of course, we all understand the prohibition of discriminatory descriptions, such as in the job description we say we prefer male instead of female. We prefer, Christian instead of Muslim. This we cannot write, because in the end, if somebody check, they will raise out this question of discrimination. Okay. And also about when we do the interviews, okay, as I said before, if we collect information, we should ask them to sign first a disclaimer about their privacy collection. This is fundamental, because in the past, I believe most of our registration form did not contain this part till today. But in Europe, as we all know, if we receive a CV from a foreign expat, in the end of CV, we always have this sentence like, I agree to use my personal data based on the EU regulation, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we are also in China, we are approaching to this end. Last point about this recruitment part is to check also when you are hiring foreign expats. As we all know, since last year, April, Chinese government already strengthening the control of foreigners working in China. I mean, it's not like in the past when a foreigner can come to China with a business visa and stay 3 months, and after go out and then come back another 3 months. This cannot have anymore. So when you want to hire a foreign expat, you should first evaluate if the candidate can meet the requirements for the working permit issuance. Okay. This is also very important when we do the check. From documentation point of view, this is always also we do during our HR grade to our clients, is to standardize all the possible documentation which you may use during your HR work. For example, offer letter, labor contract, job description. But job description usually we will put as an attachment to the labor contract. Okay, in order to make sure the position you are hiring will have a clear and definite description of the job he's going to carry out. And other than the 3 basic documents that you have, we mentioned here, we also have the training service agreement, which you sometimes, if you already pay for some training services to your employee, you should have this kind of specific agreement with them in order to provide them a minimum term of service in the company, or in case of early leave from the company, the employee shall pay back the investment which the company paid for him for the training. The employee handbook is a fundamental document. So other than that, it should be. I mean, I believe year by year. Also, some of your companies are reviewing the employee handbook. But just to remember, every time you do the review of your handbook, you still need to pass all the democratic procedures for make the employee handbook review valid. For example, you should first make the HR department together with general manager or other department managers will make the proposal of the reviews of handbook first, and after you shall have a trade union, if you have a representatives meeting, or all the employees representatives meeting to discuss about the proposal of reviews. And after, you should make a meeting minute of it, get signed by every representative of this meeting, and after you should further review. I mean, you could decide further to review or not. Depends on the feedback you collect during the first meeting. And you should publish the reviewed version in the public place of the company to make it seen and discussed to everybody. And then this reviewed version of employee handbook could produce effect in the coming year. So this procedure is not only needed in the first time when you publish your employee handbook, but every review of the following years, you should repeat anyway this procedure to keep it valid. Okay? I believe this part, just to emphasize, I spent some more time to describe it because I believe here some companies, because we have already seen some companies had problems with this aspect. Employee records. Okay, this is going back to what we discussed before about recruitment. I mean, when we have the employee on board, we will have a file for these employees. Okay, so we suggest when you keep the information, collect the information from the employee because sometimes we need to collect the information because otherwise, when you will have a labor dispute with this employee, sometimes we don't even know where he or she lives. We will not know even when to deliver the notice for arbitration or the notice for the litigation. So it will create problems. So we always suggest in the first place to our clients to collect all the possible information, but even the information of his or her wife, husband, or his parents, because in case of emergency, anyhow you should have the means to reach the parent, his or her parents. So this is fundamental and very important for our HR management. Okay, but as we now have the new GDPR from European Union, and also we have these two laws from Chinese government. So our suggestion now for this is anyway when you collect information to let them accept and sign a tailored disclaimer before obtaining any personal information from them. This is just to make sure like they agree and they will not raise out any problems for this after the collection of the information from each employee. Workplace safety and risk management. This is also very important. I mean, other than I believe most of you are manufacturing companies, and I believe because I have been in almost every one of your factories, you have always provided clearly the technical guidance where in the plant, I believe, and it is clear for the employees which safety criteria they should follow when they go into the plant to work. Okay, but the problem is as sometimes happen, the employees just don't want to follow this technical guidance. Sometimes they don't wear the hats. Sometimes they don't wear the protection shoes. Sometimes they just don't put the buds in the ear to prevent the noises. So this kind of check is also quite important, just to make sure you have the guidance, you have the regulation, but you have to make sure it has been enforced in your company. So a tour of your physical environment is always necessary when we are doing this HR audit annually. The last point is about the termination policies. I mean, more than termination policies, it's about termination situations in all of this year. Because as I said in the very beginning, every year you will have people joining you and leaving you. Most of them, if it was a demission, it's okay. But sometimes we will have some problems with them, so we will not have a peaceful termination with the employee. So sometimes we will have to sign some termination agreement with them. Okay, in order to check this termination is in compliance and will not have any problem in the future. So we should also check about all the termination papers you have signed. Also the demission letter the employees have given to you, to check the termination position is clear. Because it's not like, it does not mean like today he left the company quietly, but tomorrow he won't not raise a new litigation. But because we have clients experienced in this in this sense, like after 1 year, there's still former employee coming back to us asking us to pay the something bonus or pay the social insurance. I mean. So we need to keep it clear annually, not to leave it too long, and someday after it will come out the new problems like this, so we will not get prepared on that. Okay, this is all about the legal aspects, and of course the time is quite limited, so I cannot go through to every detailed point, but I believe if you have any specific questions, we can discuss also after in the Q&A session. Now I will pass my words to Tommaso about the technical aspects.
Hello everybody, and as my colleague said earlier today, I believe most of you already know me. We have either discussed before, we have met either in office or in your facilities, and in this second part of the webinar I will cover again the aspects about the HR audit, but on a tax perspective, which is the one that we follow in PHC. First, I will start by a very quick presentation of PHC, as Matteo has done for DP, and I will just mainly state the offices we have, so the geographies that we cover. We are in China in several offices. We are in Italy in different offices. We have activities and offices also in India, in Vietnam, in the two major cities, and in Russia we have for now a desk, but we, as Matteo said before, we will soon open an office in Moscow. And regarding our mission, it's to provide to clients, current and prospect clients, the best support with a team of specialized professionals in terms of fiscal aspects, financial aspects, accounting aspects, and anything surrounding corporate advisory. The fields that we normally cover, I'd say, are mainly four. We do complete outsourcing of back office activities, including bookkeeping, tax compliance, treasury, payroll, sales management, and HR, everything concerning, I would say, the HR dimension. We also do internal audit, or as differently said, financial supervision for companies that are more structured and have an internal financial and administrative department, which is done on a periodical basis. It can be monthly or mostly quarterly. We deal with M&A and extraordinary activities jointly with the lawyers of DP Legal Counsel, covering everything from company establishment to throughout the entire life of the company, so asset deals, equity deals, mergers, and relocation of the company, and even to the liquidation if that is the case. And we cover a major area of business consulting, including, I'd say, the topic that we cover with today's webinar. So we provide a very, I'd say, all-encompassing advisory surrounding the aspects that we cover with other activities, so the area of accounting, tax, and financial advisory. And for business consulting, it's typically spot activities that are required by the client, which can be related to HR, or again, can be related to other aspects. And through the presentation of today, I will explain you a little bit of the aspects we cover with the HR audit, which is again part of our business advisory area. So what is the purpose on a fiscal point of view of the annual HR audit? Well, basically, the areas we cover are three. They are all related to the, let's say, financial impact of the personnel, of the headcount. So, meaning from IIT calculation and declaration to social insurance and housing fund, and finally to overtime and everything that is not included in the standard, let's say, 40 hours weekly employment. The idea, again, these are the three areas and the main focus of the activity. The idea on our side for the HR audit is not just the one of spotting potential non-compliances with the regulation, but is also the one of trying to identify potential opportunities to improve the management of HR, in particular regarding a reduction of the tax burden or an improvement in terms of allowances to employees. So first I will cover one of the aspects of the social contributions, in particular the one of the pensions. From the beginning of this year, there's been a change in terms of the mandatory or voluntary contributions for pensions. In particular, from January 1st of this year, it's no longer possible to voluntarily contribute after the retirement age if the person has not met the minimum of 15 years of contribution to achieve the pension at retirement age. Which means that it's mandatory to have at least 15 years of pension contribution within the age of retirement. For medical insurance, every year actually there is an adjustment, and this is actually mostly a relief on the expenses that the individuals, so the employees, have to cover. And in particular, you can see from the table in the middle of the slide that depending on the age of the employee or the age of the person in general, even after he or she is employed by a company, so during retirement, there's been an increase in the let's say assistance that is covered by first by the state and the company, and later on only by the state itself. Moreover, again, for medical insurance, there's been a further increase in 2018, similar to the one that was done in 2017, of the limit of coverage for the medical insurance for each and every person. And it's been raised from 460,000 yuan to 510,000 per year. Finally, 80% of the medical expenses that go above the limit that I just mentioned will be undertaken by the local additional medical insurance fund. Mostly, again, 80%. Only the rest will be covered by the individual. So this is an evident message sent by the government that there is further care about people and welfare. For housing fund, there's been again a change along this year. Most of the changes you will notice for a social contribution and housing fund happen between the first 4 months of the year. Normally those are the months in which there's more activity from the government to modify these certain aspects. One of the few elements that was modified in a different moment was the individual income tax, which is the topic that we covered with the first webinar a few weeks ago, and which was changed initially from October 1st, 2018, and will be definitely changed from January 1st, 2019. So for housing fund, there's again a range that can be defined both by the employer and the employee between 5 and 7%, and there's also an additional amount which can be further provided. For housing fund, I would like to add one more thing. There's many companies that often ask us, is it possible not to let's say declare or pay exactly the housing fund, but to negotiate with the employee and to pay it as basically a cash allowance. This was very common until I'd say a few years ago, and with limited issues regarding this let's say unorthodox policy. But nowadays we definitely don't suggest to do this. It's highly preferable to directly pay regularly the housing fund, because an employee that receives a cash allowance instead of a regular payment for housing fund can still sue the company because the housing fund has not been paid officially, and there's no proof that the cash allowance has been provided. So the risk for the company is basically to pay twice and also to pay fines afterwards because things have not been dealt properly. Regarding overtime, in general, the provision is that there's a limited amount of hours that can be done of overtime on a daily basis and on a weekly and on a monthly basis. And in general, if there's only, let's say, certain situation which can be considered exceptional, in which the extension can be of several hours, as you can see in the third bullet point, up to 36 hours extra per month. If this can be done only in exceptional situation, otherwise it is only a few hours more per month, so generally no more than one more per day. If this limit is exceeded, there will be fines to be paid for, let's say, careless behavior concerning labor security. Another very important aspect is the one of the disabled fund. Very frequently, it's relevant to analyze whether it can be beneficiary to actually pay the disabled fund, which is mandatory for companies which have a certain number of employees, which greatly varies depending on the city and the province. Or instead to actually employ some disabled people and let's say avoid paying this extra amount and also showing let's say a more social behavior by employing people with disability that can absolutely 100% work in certain environments, such as let's say an office work, which having a physical disability, for instance, doesn't impact in terms of office activity that is not like normally heavy on the body. And also, not only about disabled fund, but also labor union are, let's say, more and more developed and can further raise the voice in China nowadays, especially, again, similarly to the disabled fund, in companies which have a certain number of employees. It is highly suggested, or in some cases mandatory, to establish a labor union that can take care of several aspects, which also, among which also the ones that Matteo covered in the first part of the presentation. Furthermore, in terms of payment to labor union, most of the payment in most of the cases is completely or partially, but almost completely deductible before enterprise income tax. So it doesn't impact that much on the financials of the company. And also, when it comes to social insurance, there's again, depending on the city and the province, there's a certain amount that has to be paid, which is normally based on the monthly arithmetic average salary of the province or the city. And in general, upon calculating 300% of such number, that is the maximum amount that has to be covered. And no matter how high the salary of the person is, that is still the ceiling for the payment of social contributions. However, 300% is the most common, let's say, multiple to calculate this amount, but it's not always the correct one, which again depends on the province and the specific city. And finally, another very important actually aspect that we covered in various cases with some of our clients is the case of temperatures. In this case, we talk about high temperature, but there is a very similar situation when it is about low temperature, which is quite an issue in some of the northern cities of China. Again, when it comes to high temperature allowance, this is something that is provided to employees that have to work in certain conditions, which can be either outdoor or indoor, and if it's indoor, it has to be normally with temperatures higher than 33 degrees Celsius and with no, of course, air conditioning. So these are, I'd say, among the most relevant aspects to consider once performing an HR audit, and among the most relevant changes that happen throughout this year. So this is the end of today's presentation. I thank you all very much for participating, and please, you can now turn on your mics, and should you have any question, please state your name, your company, and to whom you want to direct the question, whether it's Matteo or myself. Thank you.
So if not any question, or after you have any question, you can also write to us by email, so we can also consult with you in person, I mean one by one.
Yeah. Thank you, Matteo, and thank you, Tommaso. It's very important and sharing for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you all for participating in today's webinar, and we will let you know when we will have the third edition soon.
Absolutely.
Okay. And another question, can you share this PPT to me?
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes. We will send.
To look at.
Yes, we will send the presentation to all the participants of today's webinar.
Yes.
Okay.
And should we not have a third edition within the end of the year, we wish you all Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Shouldn't you hear from us on, let's say, working cases, on-day working cases?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time.